Welcome to Lock In with Bella. From the block to the bigger picture. We don't just talk about it, we see through it. Because not everything is what it looks like. And if you're not paying attention, you'll miss what's really behind it. There's a deeper layer to what's happening. And that's what we're here to unpack. So let's get into it. And so in this episode, we're going to talk about the rise, the drift, and the fall. What Solomon teaches us today. So we're going to go through Solomon and dive a little deeper to understand what it is that God was trying to tell us of how to make sure that we stay in alignment with his purpose for our life so that we don't end up in a place where we would say, fall off. So now we're going to talk about the rise of Solomon and the weight of where he came from. Before Solomon ever became king, there was already a story in motion. He was the son of David, and David wasn't just powerful. He was chosen, tested, flawed, and still used. He built a kingdom. He established Jerusalem. And God made a promise connected to him. So Solomon didn't just step into something small. He stepped into something already established, something spiritual, something that carried weight. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever stepped into something and then realized it was bigger than you ever expected? That's Solomon. God now comes to Solomon. This is the moment that set the direction of Solomon. God comes to him and says, ask for anything. Because most people, and we know this for ourselves, when God comes to us and say, ask for anything, most people would ask for money, protection, influence. But Solomon asked for wisdom. Now look at why Solomon asked for wisdom. Because Solomon understood that he didn't just need blessings. He needed directions. Because Solomon was young when he came into power. So you wouldn't really know anything. You're just stepping into this big position and you know nothing about it. So of course you're going to need some form of direction in order to make sure that you're doing things right. And that is some big shoes to fill. Especially with that being something that he inherited and God chose him for it. He could have picked anybody else, but he chose Solomon. So I can imagine the pressure that Solomon was under at that time. Now you got to look at it. Solomon was young at that time, and he's watched his dad do all of these great things. And if these are things that he doesn't know much about, so he wouldn't really know anything about these shoes that he's stepping into. So the main thing that he knew that he needed, and that's how you know he was coming into this with good intentions. With the right intentions, he wanted to do this and follow in his father's footsteps and do things right. Now, at the height of his wisdom, his decisions weren't just smart, they were sharp because God had blessed him with this wisdom. He could see what others couldn't. People trusted him, respected him, looked to him, and his name started to spread, not just locally, but globally. Now, one of the global moments that he had as a leader is when leaders started coming from everywhere, all over the world. But the most famous moment was the visit from the Queen of Sheba. She didn't come for entertainment. She came to test him, to see if what she heard was real. And when she saw his wisdom, his structure, and his success, she was shocked. She said what she heard wasn't even half of it. Now, when you're aligned, it shows. It speaks without you saying anything. Now, another moment and pivotal moment in Solomon's time as king, and at the peak of this moment, is when Solomon built the temple. This wasn't just construction. This was connection. It represented God being amongst the people. It was a place of prayer and a place of forgiveness. And once it was dedicated, God's presence filled it. Now imagine that moment. Everything's aligned. Leadership, purpose, presence. That's all at its height right at this moment in Solomon's time as king. Now here's where most people miss it. This was the subtle shift. Even at the top, there were cracks forming. Not obvious ones, subtle ones. Solomon started gaining more wealth, expanding power, building alliances. And one of the biggest ways He started building relationships. Now on the surface, it looks strategic, but underneath, it's the beginning of compromise. Now I'm going to bring up an example of what's happening now, where you can kind of see how what I'm talking about as far as Solomon suddenly starting to compromise and drift. Just one thing where you can kind of understand what this all means as far as Solomon, because I'm getting led to talk about like when I started the ministry. Now and this is not even just for a ministry, this is just for anybody that has a niche or whatever they're going to talk about online. If they want to be a content creator and they have a certain thing that they want to talk about, something that they're good at and that they're passionate about. Now when you go to an app like TikTok or any of these other apps, because they're all starting to kind of do the same thing, they have their own setup and how they do things on there, and that's the only way that you can grow on there, is if you're following their guidelines and their guidance as far as you putting out your content. Now, so when I started my ministry, and this is not even just for my ministry, this is for a lot of ministries that are online, what you're going to notice, and this is where he says the slow drift and the compromise in these ministries. TikTok and all of these other apps, they want you to focus on certain things and to get your platform to grow, and your platform will not grow unless you do these things, right? So that means already you have to compromise. Yep, this is what I'm getting. You have to compromise how you want to do things, how God is leading you to do things and guiding you to do things in order to grow on this platform. So they want you to pay attention to your views. They want you to say certain keywords. They want to make sure, they want you to tell people to like, share, gift, and all of these things. These things, all of those things are distractions. All of those things, and by you starting to do those things, now you're compromising, and that's where the crack starts. And so over time, you will start to hear people complaining about these different ministries and how they're already focused on money and gifts and sowing seeds and different things like that, because they have compromised in order to grow on the app. They're no longer following the guidance strictly from God. It's a mixture they're doing now. They're doing a mixture of, I'm walking with God, but I'm also in alignment with TikTok or whatever, all these other streaming apps there, whatever they're asking, I got to be in alignment with them too in order for me to grow on this app. Instead of just doing what God is telling you to do and not being focused on those things, but actually just feeding his people the word. So this is, I was getting led to mention this because this is where slow compromise come in. This is where the slow drift comes in. And then later down the line, if you finally, like he said, it's only slow. It slowly happens. So you don't even realize you're doing it until you look up. And now it's like, yes, you're flourishing. You're growing. You're growing very fast. You're getting all of these numbers and these gifts and all of these things. But now your message is not focused on what God wants you to talk about at that moment. Your focus may be prosperity and different things like that, because what I have noticed in my ministry, and I don't have a lot of followers, I don't keep a large crowd because I stay focused on exactly what it is that God wants me to talk about, and sometimes those things are not popular. People will start to continuously talk about prosperity, right? Because that is what brings in views. So when I do have messages about prosperity or retribution or vindication and those different messages, I get higher numbers. But when I talk about more serious things like these spirits and all of these things that you need to look out for and the attacks of the enemy, my numbers is low, because people gravitate towards what feels good to them, not what makes them comfortable, not what makes them uncomfortable, but what makes them comfortable, what keeps them warm and cozy, instead of the knowledge and the wisdom that God is pouring inside of us to give to warn his people so that they will not fall. So this is very interesting, and it's good that we're going to go through this Solomon story, because this is a big story that we need to focus on so that you can watch somebody rise up and how they slowly drifted and fell. And then I'm going to bring it all into what's going on in Israel right now. It's going to all coming together. Now, how you can be fooled is because this compromise doesn't feel wrong at first. It feels like growth. It feels like connection. It feels like opportunity. But sometimes it's misalignment in disguise. Now the drift, how it really happens. Solomon just didn't wake up one day and fall. It went step by step, connection, exposure, tolerance, participation, and over time his heart changed. Now this is the most dangerous place to be, because Solomon wasn't in rebellion. He hadn't completely rejected God, but there was the beginning of a divide. So still he was connected, but not fully committed. So you don't have to walk away completely to be off track. Look around you. You see people rising fast, gaining influence, building platforms, but then something shifts, not publicly at first, internally, and over time it shows. In Matthew 24, there is a warning, not about obvious deception, but deception that feels right, that sounds right, and that looks right. And that, just think about the ministry. Sounds right, looks right, and feels right sometimes. Just pay attention. Now here's where you got to do a personal check. We're going to slow down here, because this isn't just about Solomon. This is about us. Ask yourself, where have I allowed something small, ignored something I felt, and justified something I knew wasn't right? Because that's how drifting begins. Now we're going to go into the consequences of Solomon's drift. God warned Solomon, but Solomon continued. He was too deep. He was in too deep. So he continued. And eventually the consequences were set. God told him his kingdom would be divided after his life. So his son Rehoboam takes over, and then everything splits. So he allowed Solomon to stay as king, but he said after Solomon passed away, that's when the divide will take place, and that took place after his son took over. Now what he built didn't last because alignment didn't last, you see? This is the most important part, because knowing this story doesn't protect you, applying it does. So we're going to talk about the different ways of how you can make sure that you stay in alignment, and that you can ensure that you will not fall and separate from the purpose that God has for you if you continuously stay in alignment with God and not what the world wants you to do, or what the streaming app wants you to do, or what your job wants you to do, or what this church wants you to do. You understand what I'm saying? It's all connected, and this is what your family wants you to do, what the culture wants you to do, what the streets want you to do. I'm telling you, it's all connected, bro. Number one, have a real foundation. If your life is built on feelings, trends, and opinions, you will shift constantly. In James, instability is the issue. Number two, stop living on surface level. You can't survive on clips and quotes. You need depth, because even truth can be twisted, which is spoken about many times in the Bible. This truth can be twisted in many ways, and they love to twist it in every way. Sometimes we got to pay attention to the things we say, because people will twist your words. Now you may say something positive, but because there's people out here that love to twist things to make it something negative, it can easily happen. Number three, develop discernment. Discernment is sensing when something is off, recognizing patterns, not ignoring what you feel, and it grows through practice. Now God has given us the gift of discernment because our bodies can tell us when something's off. It's the issue with us is that we tend to feel things, and we know what we're feeling is right, but we like to give people passes. We like to overlook things. We don't like to go deeper, or you just may be like, I'm tripping, because I've done it times before. But our bodies tell us things. It was designed that way, so that we will not fall as victims, so we will not fall into traps and pits, so that we will not easily be lied to, manipulated. I just heard distracted, divided. You're going to feel that nudge inside of you. Our problem is that we ignore it. So the next thing is 4, take small things seriously. Okay? Because that's where everything starts. Not being not big failures, small allowances. Like I said, we be letting people pass. We be letting people slide on stuff. And that's, I'm just getting reminded of one of my issues. And they call these people, they call this now people pleasers, or people who allow people to mistreat them. And this is a issue in many, I don't even want to just say cultures, just people in general. You allow people to mistreat you, and it goes unchecked. And so that person continuously to treat you bad, speak to you in an abusive manner, because you never said you didn't like it, accept it. So you allowed this person to mistreat you. And now all that person is seeing is that you don't have any standards set up for yourself. You may like this. People can convince themselves that you like to be treated like this. And so it grows and grows and grows, because once you allow somebody to take, what do they say? You give somebody an inch and they'll take a mile. Once you allow one thing and you just keep letting things slide and slide and slide, you've gave somebody permission to mistreat you. This is an issue I had, and it was only because back in the day I had a temper. And it's something that I be having to work on, because I know me. I may not like what you say to me. And so sometimes, because I know I got a temper and I can take this from 0 to 100 real quick, like just based off me, and I ain't got to curse you out or none of that stuff, but I can read you. And what I'm reading on you is the truth. So it's going to hit you hard, because what I'm saying to you is the truth. And see, I can use that to hurt somebody and take this to 100 real quick. Okay. So I would get to this point where I would avoid stuff, because I'm like, I don't even feel like going to 100 right now. You know what I mean? Because it's just not natural to me. I don't like being in that energy, but I also don't like being disrespected. I don't like people talking to me any kind of way, but I would let stuff slide. Just because I didn't want to get in no argument, because I knew it was going to come into an argument based off what I was about to say, because I didn't have no filter. You was going to get it. Okay. You was going to get it. But at the same time, God had to teach me how, yes, I want you to correct these people, address these people, but it's a manner in which you do it. So it's not saying let stuff slide like that. You can address people, but do it in a manner where you can do it as respectfully as possible, but you're letting that person know you're not going. Okay? You're not going. And so in some cases, it kind of got to a point where I didn't have that issue anymore, because people got to a point where they was like, nah, I ain't gonna even, she looked like she ain't going. She looked like she ain't going, which is a blessing to me. I guess I had a face. I don't know what they call it. I got that face that tell you I ain't going. So I don't have the issue as much now, but you'll get people here and there that try you. And that's something I still got to work on, because you never know what could happen. Somebody could say something to you that, today you might be having a bad day. Most of the time I can let stuff slide, because I don't have a lot of drama going on in my life. But not to a person who do has a lot of drama, and they constantly getting attacked, and they constantly in toxicity, and they don't have no fuse where they're like, okay, I can stay calm even in the midst of somebody saying something crazy to me. But because I peace surrounds me most days, you understand what I'm saying? I'm a little more relaxed. Like I kind of can laugh stuff off. But I can see from a person who's living in toxicity and constantly under stress and pressure, they going off right away. And that's where I was at that time when I was when I had a bad temper. I had a lot of stuff going on, a lot of drama. I was in a toxic relationship. It was a lot of stuff happening. The job was toxic. Everything around me was toxic. So there was no, comfort level. There wasn't no peace in my life at that time. I was partying, all kind of stuff. So there was no peace at that time. But now, because I surround myself in peace, I'm not partying, I'm not doing I don't have toxic relationships going on. I don't even have a drama going on in my life at this time. I can be a little more, like when somebody says something crazy to me, I kind of laugh it off. I don't take things as seriously. So when I respond to you, and that's if I respond to you, because sometimes God will say, take a step back, because sometimes you will, you still will read the person to feel. Okay, you still will. But I'm learning now how to speak to people because I got to look at it deeper. The person who may be attacking me may be living in a life of toxicity, abuse, and I don't know. I just heard drug abuse. That's what I just heard. I don't know if I could say that on here. Hopefully I can, but that's what I was just hearing spiritually. That's why a lot of people be going off on people, taking their problems out on other people. I kind of look deeper into people when they come and say something crazy to me. I'm like, okay, I can see deeper that they battling with something bigger than themselves, something they like. I got to a point where I was like, many people out here, they hate themselves. So them hating me is not going to be something that's surprising to me. If they hate themselves, they, of course, they may hate me. If they speak to themselves negatively and everybody around them speaks to them negatively, that's how they operate and that's how they speak to people every day. That may be normal to them. But to me, because people don't talk to me that way and I'm not surrounded by those type of people, that's not normal to me. Now, I'm going to make sure that I check them and be like, you know, I ain't going to say check them. Respectfully. Don't talk to me like that, or, you know, whatever you need to say. Keep it at a minimum, because it's not I'm not here to go back and forth with you, nor am I trying to be sitting up, I don't know what I just heard spiritually, arguing with fools. That's what I just heard spiritually. Arguing with fools, because people from the outside will look and question who's the fool. So it's all about the way you respond to people, and that's another kind of compromise too. It's a compromise too. You're gonna compromise your integrity, your morals, your character by stepping in this right here and stepping in, what do they call, in the pigsty and dancing in the mud with pigs. You getting dirty with the pig. Then he said, don't cast your pearls before swine. That's what I get. But you can nip it in the bud. And me personally now, like, if you don't know how to talk to me, we ain't got nothing to talk about. That's just how I am. Like, we don't have nothing to talk about. I'm not interested in a relationship or friendship, nothing with you. I'm gonna say my piece and I'm out. I don't have to deal with this, so I don't. So, but some people, because they're used to that treatment, you know, they'll stay in it. You know what I mean? But it's not the way you're supposed to live your life. That's not the life God intended you to have. People aren't supposed to be abusing you mentally, spiritually, verbally. No, that's not the life that God created for us. But we can't end up in those places if we don't have discernment, and if we don't stand our ground, and if we don't stand up for ourselves. So that's something that I had to learn. Sometimes you got to take those small things seriously. And this is something I probably still got to work on. Because I think I've kind of been, I think it's probably, for the most part, I've been good as far as that. Like, hey, don't say that to me. But for the most part, I don't have these issues. But by the grace of God, I don't. But I don't surround myself with a whole bunch of people, to be honest. So, of course not, you know. So the next thing is watch your environment. This is pertaining to what I was just saying. In Proverbs, who you walk with matters, because environments shape your behavior. See, this is what I just talked about. Number 6, create stillness. Now, this is something we all have an issue with. In Psalms, it says, be still. You need moments where there's no noise, no influence, no distractions. That's where clarity comes from. Now, you know, we all got our moments. We scrolling, we distracted. The enemy is sending so many distractions out, but we're not going to even give him too much credit, because we are falling into those distractions. We are easily distracted at times. So you want to take some time to be quiet. And this is something I do have an issue with. I used to be very good at it at first, but now it's just, I'm at a time where I'm getting distracted sometimes. And I pray about that all the time. Number 7, close the gap. So between knowing and doing, because that gap, that's where the drift live. So we may know what's right and wrong, but if we're not acting on those things and we just letting stuff slide, we like, oh, and you know how people say, I would just, thank you, Holy Spirit. You know how people be like, they just do all of these things, be sinning and just treating people bad and all kind of stuff. And then they be like, but God knows my heart though. Yeah, God knows your heart, but that don't mean you finna just keep doing this reckless stuff. You know what's right and wrong, so you not can't just continuously be like, I'm gonna continue to do wrong, but God knows my heart, because that's what I just heard. God knows my heart, but while you out here terrorizing and harassing and verbally abusing his children, you got to think about all of that. See, what people got to understand is this: we get into it with people, you know, it happens, you know what I mean? Or you may not even get into it with people, because what day we in now, people will just simply see you. You may say something and not even in passing or to someone else or on your platform or whatever, and someone can just simply not like you. And this is one I can speak for that. People can simply not like you just off how you look. They can say that person looks stuck up. That person look mean. Because I used to get that all the time. People would say, oh, she look mean. She stuck up. She blah, 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 right? All based on a look. Just how I look. And then I would get those people, and then people would see me out, and then they'll see other people talking to me, and then I'm happy, and they like, oh, she's nice, she's cool. Everything, that's the thing. People have been misjudged me many times. Like, she look mean. She looked like this, she looked like that. And then finally they'll be somewhere at a party or something, or an event or something, and they'll talk to me, or they'll just be in a group of people that may be talking to me that know me, or they may know somebody that know me. And then they start just sitting there watching me like, hey, she actually cool, I was tripping. And then they end up liking me, and they be like, just, oh, you cool, and best of friends after that. The thing is, you can't prejudge people just based off their looks or whatever. Some people do have a bad day here and there. You know what I mean? But that's the thing. But you also want to pay attention to who you hanging around too, because that can alter your behavior as well. So keep that in mind. So Solomon's story proves something. You can have everything and still lose alignment. Solomon had wisdom, more wisdom than anybody else in the world, and he still lost alignment. So you have to stay grounded. It's not automatic, it's intentional. If someone with wisdom, influence, and favor could drift like Solomon, what's keeping you grounded? And now I'm going to go into this war in Israel and different things like that, because how I started to go into the story of Solomon, and you know, it was kind of like off of that, but it wasn't pertaining to that. But Solomon was part of Israel, and because he was the king at one point. And so how this conversation came about is me and my sister, we were following this war, and we're looking deeper into what's it all about as far as Israel and why they're attacking all of these people, and what is their purpose. So we were like trying to figure out, Israel is saying that this land was promised to them, and so that's what we feel like this war is about. The war isn't about, to me, this is just my opinion. I'm going to just say my opinion. And I guess I'm going to say allegedly too. But I'm just saying, in my opinion, these wars are not about threats. Okay? These wars is about land. They're trying to get their land back. And so when I say back, because my sister's called it, she's like, yeah, Israel fighting over this land because they saying that, you know, God promised them this land, and but they already got their land, right? They already have it, right? So this led us into looking into, you know, scripture to try to find out if Israel, because these are the questions I ask when, you know, when I'm looking deeper, I start asking a bunch of questions, okay? So I'm like, well, is Israel in, because they say Israel's little, does Israel have all of the land that God promised them? Right? So I started to look. So I went and tried to look up the map of Canaan, because I know Canaan was the promised land. It's in the Bible, it says Canaan was the promised land, the land of milk and honey. So I started asking all these questions, right? So I'm like, is Israel in the land that God promised? Partially, but not fully. So now I want to know, why are they partially in the land? So they led me to the book of Numbers, especially in chapter 34. So it says God gives specific boundaries for the land promised to Israel, which was the land of Canaan. And they talk about from what border to what border of, I'm not going to go into that part. And so I then wanted to know where Israel was today. Like if Israel is fighting for this land and they've already received majority of it, what are they still fighting for? Did they get the full land? What is the point, right? So this brings me back to Solomon. When Solomon was king, he was able to obtain majority of the promised land, most of it. He was able to maintain most of it. But as we just talked about in the story of Solomon, what happened? Solomon fell, right? So this brings us to Israel right now. So I asked the question of how did Israel lose part of the promised land? Because like it says in the Bible, Solomon was able to obtain majority of the promised land, like most of it. It just might have been like a small corner that he wasn't able to obtain, but majority of it they had already got it. So when I asked that question, it says, number one, first, they didn't fully take it. When Israel entered the land in the book of Joshua, God gave them victory, but they didn't drive out all the nations. They stopped short of full obedience. Now that's the key verse. In Judges chapter 1, it shows many tribes saying they could not drive them out. In the book of Judges, they lived among the Canaanites instead of removing them. This led to influence, compromise, and idolatry. Okay? So remember that at all times, even in the Bible, multiple times when God told them exactly, when you go into this promised land, make sure you do not follow the laws of that land. You know what I mean? That was the point. So one major reason is they never fully possessed everything God gave them. But number two, it was disobedience and idolatry. God made a covenant with Israel. Obedience equals blessings in the land. Disobedience equals loss of the land. This is laid out clearly in book of Deuteronomy chapter 28. So what happened? They worshipped other gods, Baal, Asherah. They ignored God's commands. They became like the nation around them. In the results of that, God allowed enemies to rise against them again and again. So this is how they lost the land. So number three, there was an invasion and an exile because of continuous disobedience. Israel eventually lost large portions of the land through conquest. In the northern kingdom of Israel, it was conquered by Assyrian Empire in 722 BC. People were scattered. In the southern kingdom of Judah, they were conquered by the Babylonian Empire in 586 BC. Jerusalem destroyed, people taken into exile. Now this is recorded in 2 Kings and 2 Chronicles. This is when they lost control of the land entirely. So 4 was a partial return but not full restoration. Later under empires like Persia, some Jews returned. This is in the book of Ezra and the book of Nehemiah. Jerusalem was rebuilt, but they never regained the full territory described in book of Numbers 34. They remained under foreign rules, Persia, Greece, and Rome. So the big picture is simple truth. Israel didn't lose the land in one moment. It happened in stages. So here we go. We're back to Solomon. This gradually happened because they were compromised, because they began to drift, because they fell out of alignment with God. So in this war and everything, because this is what me and my sisters be talking about, because I keep saying that when God said, I will deliver the enemy into your hands. When I want you to take over this territory, I would deliver them into your hands easily. So we started to ask, why is this war not happening easily? Because if this is land that was promised to God and they were in alignment with God and God went before them, this should have been an easy win. And this is just my opinion. This should have been an easy win. And I ain't gonna even say my opinion because it says it in the Bible. It's clear. He said, I will deliver if you read the book of Joshua, every battle that Joshua went in was an easy win because God set it up. He set up everything for it to go easy and smooth. Okay. The only one that he wasn't able to conquer easily and smooth was the battle that he had with AI. Now the battle that he had with AI, he went into that battle with confidence because God had already delivered all the other nations. He was just taking over nations quickly, and everybody was in fear of him because they knew God was with him, and they was like just in fear. They knew it was a sure win. So that's how Joshua went into the battle with AI, and he ended up losing the battle. And the first thing he questioned God, what's going on? Why did we lose this battle? You said you was going to deliver them in our hands, and God said, someone in the covenant has, someone in your group have sinned against my covenant. So you got to get that person up out of there before you can win any more battles. I'm not doing this. Y'all not in alignment no more because I gave you particular rules. Do not steal from the lands that I send you to. Don't take any of the treasures or anything. And somebody in the land, someone in this group started stealing all these treasures. So they had to find out who that person was and remove them and get rid of them in order for them to win any more battles. So this is the thing. Like I said, every battle that Joshua went in, sure win, easy win. And didn't matter who it was, big or small, they were going to win. But when you went in with AI, they lost because there was somebody that sinned in the covenant. Now that brings me back to Israel. This should have been a sure win if this is the land that God promised, right? But if you go back into the text when Solomon was king, because he was in alignment, at the time he was in alignment, he was able to get most of the promised land for them. But he started to fall and drift and be compromised. And so he lost it. Now, Israel may be trying to gain their land back. Cool. You know what I mean? It is the land that was promised to them. But if you're not in alignment, this is what I'm getting. If you're not in alignment with God, it's not going to come easy. God's not with you like that. You know what I mean? He's not with you. And if you still operating in idolatry and worshiping false gods and in sin and heavily in sin, it's not going to be easy. So now what are we watching? Are we watching them fight this battle against all of these nations, which is spoken about in Matthew's nations, right? Without God. That's the question that we have now. Are they just like, no, we want our land back and we gonna try to get our land back without God because it would have been easy. This is just my opinion. It would have been easy. It's something amiss right now as far as that, because this should have been an easy win, and they made it as if it was like how they was talking, and this is why I said was talking. How they was talking was that this was an easy win, and it would have been if God was with them. That's just how I see it. That's what the word says. That's how I see it. That's how I see it. And so they was doing the big talk like, yeah, this easy win, this easy work. But then you start paying attention and it really wasn't that easy. So I think that they're just in a battle to try to win back their land. The land that was promised to them. But I got to ask myself the question of, are they fighting this battle with God? Or are they just like, we want our land back and we going to try to get it back without God? And so you know how that works. They going to compromise, move, and do a whole bunch of things against God's covenant or whatever they need to do. They finna break a whole bunch of rules to try to get that land back. So then that brings me to the land is always promised to them. But is it promised to them at this time? That's what I'm saying. The land is promised to them. And I'm not even saying them, because even in the word it says that there will be people that will pretend and lie and say they're Jews. But they are not the true Jews. So it's all like, that's what I'm saying. Stay in your word and start really researching what's going on now and start going back to the word, because it's all there to help you see things clearer, to see the truth of what's happening in this world. Because if you actually just listen to what they're saying, they're going to tell you a whole bunch of lies. They're going to twist the truth. You know what I'm saying? They're going to twist it. That's why twist it. That's why discernment is very important. And you always want to go back to the word to see what's going on. Because if I just looked at the news and what they were saying, I would be really misinformed. But because I kept getting led to Matthew 24, the questions that me and my sister, when we look into stuff, we like to, I know I like to ask a whole bunch of questions, and she just let me do the research. Like, you know, she'll let me do the research, and she had questions or whatever, or she'll look into some stuff. But I'll be asking a lot of questions, so because I'll be trying to find out. But I just was thinking about this war, but that's what I'm saying, the slow drift, the slow compromise. And this has been going on for many years. This has been going on since Solomon. To be honest, it's been going on since Solomon. And so you just watching a slow drift. And so this is when we come to the fall off. So many times you would wonder why people falling off is because it don't just happen overnight quickly. It's a slow build up to it. So this is something that we got to all be careful with, because like I said, it's subtle. It doesn't, you don't know it's happening. You don't know what's happening until you get into the point where you falling and you like, what happened? What happened? I thought I was doing everything right. It's like you were doing some things right. It was a mixture of some things right and a mixture of some things that the world may have wanted you to do, or these relationships wanted you to do. Now, even with Solomon, first off, God told him not to marry any, I forgot who it was. It was those foreign women, because those foreign women was going to lead him into idolatry and him worshiping their God. He told Solomon that from the start. And Solomon still went and got all of these concubines and married all of these wives. He had so many wives and concubines, and they were all, majority of them was from the people that he told him not to marry. So that's how he was able to fall. And so this brings me back to how you can just stop yourself from getting compromised, okay? Or even drifting to all of those things, is when if you follow what God's guidance is and what you know to be right and the truth, and stand on it. Whether, you can't let your flesh lead you. You can't let the influence of outsiders lead you away from what God has for you, because it puts you in a compromising position. It really does. It puts you in a compromising position. And though you may be chosen and favored, okay, you not only are you in the compromise, you compromise, so you making God compromise too. Because he has something he wanted you to do. He has a purpose for your life. And now you have compromised that purpose. This is what the Holy Spirit, this is what I'm getting right now in real time, okay? So it kind of puts you in a place where, I'm trying to think of the word, liability. Thank you. Thank you, Holy Spirit. It makes you a liability. Because now he got to constantly be trying to still fulfill his purpose throughout all of the stuff that you signed up for, that he even told you to sign up for, okay? It's just like, say God have a purpose for you. He wants you to do, I'll just say a ministry. I'll say a ministry, right? He wants you to do a ministry, or you may be a singer, or you may be, it's things he may want you to do. You want to use your voice for his glory, right? And then you get, God will send somebody towards you, right? Because he wants you to go with that person, because that person is not going to compromise you, right? But that person's deal might not be as good as the enemy's deal, because the enemy going to always put a little cherry on top of lies. You're going to always put a little cherry on top, but it's all lies, okay? Because there's always going to be some little fine print in there that you didn't know, that, that really you're not getting nearly as much, okay? But people find out that too late. So say you sign a contract and you got two contracts, one from God, the other is from the enemy. Now the enemy is going to put an illusion in his contract. He got to put a 1,000 illusions and lies in his contract, because he got to make his contract look better than the contract that God offered you, right? You got to use your discernment. You can't be so focused on the money that you don't read the contract. And I mean dissect the contract down to the wire. This is a lot of people's problem. People will see money, they don't even look at the fine print where it say, hey, yeah, you're going to get this money, but you got to pay us for blah, 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 and how they end up without any money in the end, because technically they finna give you this money, but you finna have to get this money right back to them, because they made sure to put that in the contract, that you was finna have to pay for trips, bookings, all of this stuff. video footage, just anything. They have all of these different things in there, but because you saw that large total in the beginning, you didn't look at the subtractions that was going to come from it. So now they made a promise you 2.5 million, or they may have promised you 5 million, but after you pay them back all this money, you getting like 500K, and that's maybe, you know what I mean? So you got to pay attention. One contract where they may not have offered you as much money, but they are paying for everything. See, you got to look at it like that. Like, say, okay, they're going to give, this one company is offering me 2 million, but they're going to pay for everything to back me, my bookings, my videos, my whatever I need to do. That's going to come out of their pocket because they're investing in me, right? So you like that 2.5 million, cool, but the enemy finna offer me 5. The enemy gonna offer me 5, but I'm about to pay them back every dime that they not investing nothing in me. This is what you gotta understand. The enemy ain't investing nothing in you. You finna pay for, he can give you the money, but it's almost like he didn't give you the money. It's like, I'm gonna give you this 5 million, but you gonna owe me 4, or you gonna owe me 4.5 of it by the end of this, because I'm not compromising myself for you. I'm not about to pay nothing on. I'm not about to invest in you in any way. I got to get all my money back. That's the difference. This is how you're going to know the difference. When God sends somebody in your life, that person have the spirit of God on them. They got the money to invest in you because that's what God blessed them with the money, because he wanted you to bless this person with an opportunity to glorify him, right? And because that person in alignment, they gonna use the money, stewardship. That's what they're gonna store it, and they're gonna use the money for exactly what God intended them to use the money for. So they're gonna invest in you. So the money that you actually get, you gonna actually get that 2.5. But with the enemy, they're not about to do it. And if anything, they finna get all their money back and some. Okay? And some. And discard of you the moment that you can't provide for them anymore. So the discernment is very important, and that the compromise and all of that stuff, you can't, I'm telling you, you got to stand on business. You got to stand on business. Because the thing is if you don't have any structure or shape for yourself, like if you don't have that set in stone, the world will do it for you, or the industry will do it for you, or whoever will do it for you, and you don't want them to do it for you, because in a lot of cases they don't care about you. They just trying to get money, and if they can get it off of you, they gonna do that in a way where they ain't gotta pay you as much as you really worth. They gonna do that. But not somebody God sends towards you. So sometimes when you in that wait, in that period where you waiting, it's like he's teaching you patience, because you can't be so quick. I need to get to this bag now. That's the culture right now. We got to get to the bag, right? So when you say you got to get to the bag, you got to get to that bag ASAP. You don't care what bag it is or who sent it. This is the thing. You don't care who sent it, and you don't know how much, or you don't care how much it's going to cost you later, until that later comes and it's now costing you. So sometimes you got to say no. Sometimes you got to say no, even to a big deal, if you see compromise in the future of it. And that is the message. And so everything we talked about goes deeper than the surface. So stay aware, stay grounded in truth, and stay in your word. And pay attention to what's behind it, the things that's happening in this world. This is Lock In with Bella, from the block to the bigger picture. I'll see you next time.